This NFL season hasn't gotten any less crazy, so now let's recap Week 13 with our weekly vibe check where we rank every NFL team's week. There were crazy catches that all came from losing teams, no buys, and 4 teams that got eliminated from postseason contention. They will all be near the bottom of the countdown. There was one team that was so bad, I'm putting them below all the teams who were mathematically eliminated. So let's get started. At number 32, the Minnesota Vikings. The winner of the Sam Darnold revenge game went to the Seattle Seahawks' defense. Max Brosmer, who spent all afternoon making J.J. McCarthy look like Drew Brees, had 126 passing yards, no touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. Justin Jefferson was non-existent as well, especially if you're a post-game reporter, as he had 4 receiving yards total. It was a miserable afternoon for the Vikings, who have now spent all their afternoons longing for the days of Kirk Cousins. That's when you know vibes are bad. Can Desmond Ridder come in and who the hell am I kidding? Kevin O'Connell, what do you have left in the tank? A receding hairline? That helps nobody. At least the defense was fine today. Dallas Turner had 2 sacks, and he's starting to come into his own. Unfortunately, the offense was absolutely anemic, and the quarterback whisperer himself has some splaining to do. Kwesi, meanwhile, should change his name to Queasy, considering how uneasy he makes Vikings fans feel. That was tough to get out. At number 31, the Tennessee Titans. The Titans have officially been eliminated from the playoffs, and can we say we're surprised? We can't. This season has been defined by Cam Ward's quote, "If we keepin' it a buck, we ass," which seems to get rehashed week in and week out. This team is so bad, it's really hard to spot what their true weaknesses are. They were 2 for 12 on 3rd down and 1 for 4 on 4th down. Their only successful 4th down conversion came on a drive where the Titans were later unsuccessful on 4th down. The Titans unsuccessfully tried to fight Jags punter Logan Cook, proving they fail at literally every aspect of 4th down. Like all blowouts seem to go, the Titans got an early field goal and were asleep at the wheel the rest of the way home. Joey Sly had as many field goals as he had tackles. It was a putrid performance that allowed Johnny Hecker to earn his entire year's salary in 1 game. This organization is in shambles right now, and 2026's head coaching candidates are playing the most extravagant game of not it you've ever seen. At number 30, the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals got eliminated from the playoffs in the most Cardinals way possible, in a 1-score game. With this, the Cardinals' record in games decided by 4 points or fewer has fallen to 0-7. Jacoby Brissett continues to be a guy who puts up numbers, but those numbers don't translate to wins, and that's also not Jacoby Brissett's fault. If he's producing, why are we going to blame him? Because it's fun? Oh, don't do that. This team is quietly in a really bad situation. They have a tiny quarterback who's going to get a big contract elsewhere because of what he could do. And by that, I mean play for their city's Major League Baseball team as well. Their number 4 overall pick from a year ago has a heel injury and he's out this upcoming week. Though they do have a tight end who is likely going to be a first-team All-Pro, just like I predicted at the beginning of the season. However, this team has a lot that needs to be fixed, and it needs to be fixed soon. Vibes are not good, and the 1-score games record really needs to be fixed as soon as possible. Is it going to happen due to a coaching firing? Who knows? Kyler Murray is now done for the year, meaning he will go back to his Call of Duty Twitch streams. If you're a quarterback, the last thing you should do is align yourself with a game that's popular among guys who never score. At number 29, the Las Vegas Raiders. At least Brock Bowers made a cool catch. At number 28, the New Orleans Saints. I don't think this team is going to be nearly as bad as people think. They just so badly need pieces. Right now, they have Chris Olave and whatever is left of Taysom Hill, which isn't much. Though this wasn't a dreadful performance by any means. Tyler Shuck was serviceable. The Saints' new kicker from Northern Ireland made a 56-yard field goal look like a chip shot. Devon Vele established himself as New Orleans' number 2 target, which is horrible news for the whitest part of the Saints fan base who forgot that Taysom Hill is 35. Did I mention Charlie Smith with a Y is from Northern Ireland? Apparently there's a difference. Shuck threw a TD to Devon Vele at the end of the game, but Shuck should have learned the lesson that I had to learn as a Bengals fan. When going for points after a touchdown, avoid Minkah Fitzpatrick at all costs. That play sealed the loss for the Saints, and their playoff hopes are now completely gone. At number 27, the Pittsburgh Steelers. The highest paid defense in the NFL faced an offensive line that was down their 2 starting tackles, and what happened? Well, that. The Steelers had the ball for only 18 out of the 60 minutes in this game. On what may have been the worst play of the season for the Steelers, Aaron Rodgers was sacked, lost a fumble that was returned for a touchdown, and suffered a nose injury from a player that looks like he can injure people with his nose. You know you had a bad day when the other team is down 2 offensive tackles and your quarterback is the one that ends up with a band-aid on his nose. Elsewhere, Patrick Queen tried to injure Josh Allen himself, and he suffered a hip injury on the very next play, proving there is still good in the world. An awful loss by the Steelers, but don't ask me to show you any sympathy. At number 27, the Cleveland Browns. This week was a despicable special teams performance for the ages. Gage Larvadain had a punt go right through his hands in a way that made Jerry Jeudy look jealous. They allowed the 49ers to score 3 touchdowns that all came on drives that were for a combined 64 yards. Sky Moore honored his name by making the Browns' chances of winning disappear into thin air. Also, the field goal defense unit allowed 2 field goals and 2 PATs to a gay man. I vote Democrat! On the other guy, Shedeur was fine. He hasn't been a world beater, but he hasn't been the one that's lost the game for the Browns either. He relied on checkdowns, but the weather was ass. Him and Brock Purdy were about the same in terms of passing. Shedeur Sanders' touchdown to Harold Fannin was a result of Robert Saleh thinking more than one guy needed to guard Jerry Jeudy. He isn't as bad as his haters think he is, but he also isn't the most powerful black man since Obama. Kendrick, Perkins to specify. This was a bad loss by the Browns, and it was made further worse by the fact that Shedeur's fans and haters think their case got more solidified. The fact that Malik Collins is now out for the year. Myles Garrett, still absolutely him. At number 25, the Baltimore Ravens. Ha 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 ha! Thank you for trotting out Lamar Jackson while his body still sucked. This is a game where mostly nothing went right for Baltimore. The Ravens had 5 turnovers, all 5 of which warmed my heart. The defense couldn't keep up with the Bengals offense that maintained possession of the ball for 38 minutes as opposed to the Ravens' 21 minutes. There's some rounding, I'll work on that. Derrick Henry started off the game hot with a 28-yard rushing touchdown, but had a mere 7 carries after that. It was an ugly night for Ravens fans who had to watch a team that they thought was so back. Unfortunately for them, it's just an injury-riddled offense who can't work around Lamar and is likely screwed body. The AFC North is such a weak division. The Bengals are currently 4-8 and a realistic winner of the AFC North, and I am all for that. At number 24, the Indianapolis Colts. This team has fallen off a cliff in the second half of the season. They've lost 3 of 4, and it didn't help that they had to face one of the best defenses in the NFL. Daniel Jones was decent, but his fibula injury and the fact that he had to face the Texans defense didn't do him any favors. The Colts came up just short against the Texans team that we all thought was going to be miserable at the beginning of the season. Well, like kind of near the beginning of the season. You get my point. The biggie though, Sauce Gardner suffered a calf strain and now he is out for the foreseeable future. Not long enough to be put on injured reserve, but long enough to watch Adonai Mitchell thrive as a wide receiver for the Jets, which I didn't know was scientifically possible. Is the Colts season collapsing? Nobody knows, but for now, they're not good. The Sauce injury didn't do them any favors. As of now, they don't have their next 2 first-round picks or a functioning calf on the guy that they got in exchange for them. Number 23, the New York Giants. This team is still struggling. They had to deal with Abdul Carter missing meetings and allegedly watching porn during a team meeting. He didn't, you rumor lovers. In this game, things did not go according to plan on Monday night. They gave up a punt return touchdown to this generation's Devin Hester. They helped Drake May cement his MVP case. Andy Borregales had as many points for the Patriots as the Giants had all together, even with Jackson Dart firmly cemented as the guy in New York. Despite everyone going for his head, the Giants just couldn't pull off the victory against a really good Patriots team. This game left all of America asking one question about the New York Giants. What the f*** was that? At number 22, the Philadelphia Eagles. This was the kind of game that was a A.J. Brown wet dream. He statistically produced really well in an Eagles loss. Thanks to wins caused by how much Kevin Patullo's play calling blows, the Eagles moved the ball at an ineffective pace until it was too little too late. The rushing defense? Oh boy, it was a struggle. DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai ran all over them, while Quadzilla was limited to 13 rushes for 56 yards. While the University of Georgia Alumni Association had 2 sacks on Caleb Williams, they didn't have an answer for the rushing duo. 8-4 has somehow never felt more discouraging. Fans' frustrations have boiled over. Eagles offensive coordinator Kevin Patullo's house was hit with eggs in honor of how scrambled his game plan is every week. Just an ugh way to end the week, even though A.J. Brown is on cloud 9. At number 21, the Los Angeles Rams. Hey, they fell for the trap game. The Rams offense struggled with the long cross-country trip, in addition to the Carolina Panthers and Matthew Stafford's chase for the all-time record for pick sixes. Now, he is only one behind Brett Favre. The Rams had plenty of opportunities, and they screwed him up. Now, with Stafford's off week, and with Drake May's MVP case ascending, the MVP case is a little less in Stafford's favor, especially with the 3 turnovers he committed. Not even 2 rushing TDs and 2 Devontaes could do the trick. The Rams suffered the L and are now tied for Seattle for the division lead. And speaking of Matthew Stafford's teams taking L's, at number 20, the Detroit Lions. Thanksgiving began with Jordan Love throwing all over the Lions defense. Well, technically it began with Amon-Ra St. Brown injuring his ankle, rendering my touchdown bet on him completely null and void, but that's beside the point, really. The Lions have historically not done well on Thanksgiving, and this was just a continuation of that. They didn't sack Jordan Love once, but they did let him throw 4 touchdowns. They didn't put up enough points on offense, but they did let Tom Kennedy get 4 receptions, I'm assuming on accident. Jamison Williams had a great game, but it wasn't enough to overcome Green Bay's offensive free-for-all. Elsewhere, Frank Ragnow unretired the day before the game and then did that Simpsons meme where he grabbed his hat right back and walked out the door as he failed his physical, so that's fun. At number 19, the Kansas City Chiefs. Oh boy, the Chiefs are 500, including 1-5 on the road and 1-5 in one-score games. What a stark contrast from last year where they squeaked out victories in all of those formats. Patrick Mahomes threw 4 touchdowns, 2 to Rashee Rice, 1 to Hollywood Brown, and 1 to Hollywood White. Even with Mahomes performing that well, they just couldn't hold their own against the Cowboys offense. They had no answers or sacks on Dak Prescott. That's not a good sign. The Chiefs are now 4 games back from the AFC West crown, and they have 3 divisional games remaining. This is easily the worst season of Mahomes' career, and I'm kind of glad because we all need a break from Jackson Mahomes' celebratory TikToks. And number 18, the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons aren't really playing for much right now besides a draft selection. They're down Michael Penix for the year, Drake London for the foreseeable future, and a competent coach until Raheem Morris gets fired. Bijan Robinson had an excellent game with 142 rushing yards, and Tyler Algier continued his run as the ultimate fantasy football vulture with a 1-yard rushing touchdown in the first half. The fact that the Falcons were able to lean on what is clearly the strength of their offense allowed them to control the majority of the game. Unfortunately, on the final drive, Kirk Cousins had the second worst luck any Kirk has had in all of 2025, as none of his somehow good passes were completed, and the Jets won on the final drive on a Nick Folk field goal. Atlanta now sits at 4-8 and with not the best vibes. At number 17, the Washington Commanders. This was the best game of the weekend, somehow. Marcus Mariota was very fun to watch, and the former Tennessee Titans first-round pick threw a touchdown to another former Tennessee Titans first-round pick on what was the indefinite catch of the year. Isn't that fun? Zach Ertz had a Trey McBride-like stat line of 10 catches for 106 yards. Terry McLaurin was fully back, and insert Commanders running back here had a touchdown. Ooh, was Chris Rodriguez frisky. They came up just short though in overtime as they had a touchdown, but they had a 2-point conversion attempt that was doomed from the start. Not a bad game for the Commanders against a very, very good Broncos team. Vibes are okay, but they have clinched a losing record. Use Traylon Burks more. Before I go any further, if you like what you've seen so far, subscribe to the channel. We have a fun time around here. I do plenty of comedic shorts, I do live play-by-play streams of Bengals road games, and we have a generally fun time around here. It's the sexiest sports content on the internet. I'd love if you became a subscriber. And now, back to the video. At number 16, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This game existed. It just existed. In a game that could have been a shootout, which would have been extra fun considering all the literal cannons inside Raymond James Stadium, Baker Mayfield was just fine, especially coming off of injury. Baker had 184 net passing yards and threw his 1 offensive touchdown of the day to the ultra-reliable, the likely Hall of Famer, not him. That's better. Bucky Irving returned from not injury reserve for some reason and had a pretty good game. He had 17 rushes for 61 yards and a touchdown. Chris Godwin put up good numbers once again, and they might be getting Mike Evans back pretty soon. They're still barely clinging to the lead in the NFC South. Vibes are fine. At number 15, the Houston Texans. Listen, man, I don't know how many more times I can write mid-offense, great defense before I get carpal tunnel syndrome. That was what this week was. Good work, I guess. At number 14, the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins have now won 3 in a row, and the Chris Grier hate watch streak continues. Tua Tagovailoa continued to be the guy who really should be handing it to Devon Achane on every play. Tua was mid, and Achane controlled the tempo of the game, as he had 22 rushes, 134 yards, and a touchdown. Achane was just named the Offensive Player of the Month for November. Gosh, I wonder what it's like for a running back to be so good that he helps mask how mediocre that team's quarterback truly is. Wait, I don't have to wonder anymore. The defense did come through when it mattered most, especially with Minkah Fitzpatrick's run back for a 2-point conversion. But did you have to make Devon Vele look that good? At number 13, the New York Jets. There's the Adonai Mitchell game we were all waiting for. Adonai Mitchell had the first 100-yard game a Jets receiver has had all season, which is crazy because they have Garrett Wilson on their roster, and he's been healthy for some of these games. Tyrod Taylor was very good as well, as he threw 1 touchdown and ran in 1 touchdown. The Jets really aren't playing for much right now, except to determine whether or not Aaron Glenn can be the guy in New York. They now have a bunch of good draft capital and an opportunity to build a solid future, while the Patriots once again seem to have a dynasty ahead of them. Lord help us all. This season is likely lost, so vibes won't be good this year, but there's still time for the future. I'm okay with that as long as Woody Johnson isn't alive to see it. At number 12, the Dallas Cowboys. The Chiefs lost, but at what cost? Oh, it cost us freedom from the "Are the Cowboys gonna go make a run in the postseason" segments on First Take. The only answer Dallas had for Patrick Mahomes all game was, well, we're gonna kick your defense's ass then. And that they did. Dak Prescott found the end zone twice, something called a Malik Davis had a long rushing touchdown, and Brandon Aubrey's leg continued to be Yeet Davidson as he was 3 for 3 on field goal attempts. The Cowboys-Chiefs game on Thanksgiving was the most watched regular season NFL game of all time, which means America found a Cowboys win more tolerable than your uncle's political opinions. Good vibes in Dallas, for now. Just wait until January, where all hell breaks loose. Like always. At number 11, the Buffalo Bills. Very good week for the Bills. The first half started monumentally slow as the Steelers jumped out to a 7-3 lead. But the second half was like the first day of the month. All Bills. The first play of the second half resulted in an Aaron Rodgers fumble and a Christian Benford touchdown, which excited the city of Buffalo more than a new flavor of blue cheese. Buffalo then maintained possession of the ball for the majority of the second half, and they wore out the Steelers' old defense as if they went an entire day without Nugenics. And they gave the city of Buffalo really good vibes for the week. The Bills' rushing offense gave Cameron Hayward 249 reasons to retire. Josh Allen also broke Cam Newton's record for rushing touchdowns by a quarterback. Good win for the Bills, though next week's game has all the trap game vibes you could ask for. Yes, I'm biased, and no, I don't care. And number 10, the LA Chargers. Yeah, we all knew this one was coming. The Chargers were coming off of a bye. The Raiders were coming off of still being the Raiders. So it was. Kamani Vidal was the star of the game for the Chargers as he had 137 yards from scrimmage. Justin Herbert put up the most Andy Dalton sans AJ Green game the world has ever seen, with 151 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, and a hand surgery appointment. This game went exactly as everyone expected it would. The Raiders have not stood a chance of late, and the Chargers picked a good time to engage in a rebound. Happy for the boys in LA, and vibes are in a good place once again, especially with the Hampton Inn coming back sooner rather than later. At number 9, the Jacksonville Jaguars. This game happened, and we're all gonna forget about it once the Titans successfully zap it from their memory. Trevor Lawrence was good, but what's more important is who their leading receiver was. The Jags made what was probably the deadline deal of the year. Jacoby Myers was like, "Someone save me from the Raiders." And Liam Cohen was like, "I hear your cries for help. Follow my voice." Duval. The Raiders are going downhill, and Jacksonville has quietly ascended to the top of the AFC South. They have now won their 3rd straight game, and vibes are really good in Jacksonville. Also, it's good to see Brenton Strange back. I don't really have much else to say, except the Titans are despicable to watch, and they tried to fight a punter. At number 8, the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers have finally won in Cleveland for the first time in 42 years. Robert Saleh and the NFC West Golden Boys have now dominated Shedeur Sanders. The defense was led by former 4th overall pick Clelin Ferrell, who led the team in total tackles, solo tackles, sacks, tackles for loss, and quarterback hits. What a guy. The 49ers beat the Browns thanks to capitalizing on their mistakes of a failed tush push, a muffed punt, and the Browns starting Jerry Jeudy at wide receiver. Brock Purdy scored a rushing touchdown and hit the Dougie in front of Browns fans who are better suited to teach him how to druggy. Elsewhere, Sky Moore had a nice first quarter punt return and an even nicer punt return yardage total. The biggest positive of the game, though, Jawan Jennings avoided getting hit in the nuts. Huge quality win by a good 49ers team who have now clinched a winning record heading into their Week 14 bye. At number 7, the Cincinnati Bengals. On the national stage, the Bengals stomped the Ravens on the road. Joe Burrow returned from what he thought was a season-ending injury, but he's all good and dandy as he threw 3 touchdowns to a combined 3 hands. Tanner Hudson used 1 hand, and Yoshi used 2 hands when he really could have just used his tongue. It's a Yoshi joke. Who cares? The Bengals didn't have a perfect game though, as they were 1 for 6 in the red zone, and they blew a 1st and goal opportunity from the 2-yard line. However, Evan McPherson kicked 6 field goals and the Ravens' playoff chances directly in the nuts. The celebratory turkey for Thanksgiving night became a voodoo doll as Joseph Osai took a bite out of a turkey leg, and now Lamar Jackson is questionable with an ankle injury. Vibes are pretty good in Cincinnati right now. Even though they're 4-8, playoff hopes are very real. They could make the postseason. December is when the Bengals get hot because nothing about this team makes any sense whatsoever. And number 6, the Denver Broncos. If you're a Broncos fan and you need to boil this game's vibes down to one word, might I suggest few with a PH. Bosif Nixon and company weren't perfect, but they got the job done in what was the game of the weekend that saw a combined 95 passing attempts between the 2 former Oregon quarterbacks. RJ Harvey scored twice, including once in OT. Cortland Sutton even got a touchdown, proving that he does in fact still exist. Evan Ingram was the leading receiver, and his critical 41-yard catch in overtime put RJ Harvey in perfect position to score his 2nd touchdown of the night. Nick Bonito came through on the final play, proving that he is still one of the most underrated defenders in the NFL. This is a game that would have been an instant classic had it occurred between 2 more high-profile teams. Insanity. Good vibes in Denver, especially with them gaining a game on the Chiefs. Number 5, the Seattle Seahawks. What a defensive performance. Seriously. I know they faced the immortal Max Brosmer, but holy Mike McDonald deserves credit for their game plan against a Vikings defense that played like it was trying to drive out of a Minneapolis snowstorm. The Seahawks passing offense was unproductive, but who cares? Okay, they care, but the defense had Max Brosmer's number the entire day. The defense had 4 interceptions, which means that one of them was bound to reach the end zone by default, and that they did. Ernest Jones, the 4th, had 2 picks, and 2 more picks took place by Reek Woolen and the 2nd best Kobe Bryant to wear number 8. Go Bearcats. Quality win for a Seahawks team that just gained a game on the ascending LA Rams. And number 4, the Green Bay Packers. Jordan Love balled out, man. The Packers signal caller threw 4 touchdowns. 2 to Dontavian Wicks, a bomb to Christian Watson, and a check down to Romeo, therefore art thou Romeo Dobbs. Micah Parsons continued to ensure that the Cowboys' first-round picks they had gotten in exchange for Parsons would be late first-round picks, as Parsons had 2.5 sacks on Jared Goff. Oh yeah, back to Dontavian Wicks. This was probably the best game of his career, guys. Wicks had 6 receptions, 94 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a critical game-ending 4th down catch where he traded his shoe for a win. What a guy. The Packers are a legitimate threat once again. Jordan Love threw more touchdowns on Thanksgiving than Aaron Rodgers had in all of November. At number 3, the Carolina Panthers. Yo! The Panthers pulled off a major home win against the Rams, who are probably NFC favorites. Carolina showed their big playability on the national stage, as all 4 touchdowns were from, respectively, 35 yards, 48 yards, 33 yards and 43 yards. The Panthers scored a touchdown on a Matthew Stafford pick six, and I'm not going to say which Panthers player did it, but let's just say he came through when it mattered most. This was the upset win of the week, and it felt like one that didn't completely come out of left field. Heading into the Week 14 bye, vibes really couldn't be better right now. With 4 games remaining, 3 against the NFC South and 2 against the Bucs, the NFC South crown is very much within reach. And number 2, the Chicago Bears. The Bears are somehow the number 1 seed in the NFC. Ben Johnson has done a spectacular job with this team in his first year at head coach. They ran all over the Eagles defense as they compiled 281 rushing yards. DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai each eclipsed 125 yards. Oh my god, it's too windy to throw? Then let's just not pass that much. Offensive wizardry, or windsurgery. Yeah, who cares? Is that a thing? Oh, shut up. Vibes really couldn't be better with the Bears right now. Well, except Rome Odunze was discovered to have been playing with a stretch fracture in his foot, meaning Rome Odunze's dad will be out from Twitter for at least Sunday and possibly longer. But at number 1, the New England Patriots. The Patriots have now won 10 in a row. Drake May has returned to the front of the MVP conversation as he had 282 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. One to Kyle Williams and one to the ass man himself, Kayshon Boutte. Kayshon Boutte continues to be so impressive, I am nearly out of butt jokes. That's impressive. This is exactly what the Patriots needed. They've won 10 straight, they're headed into a bye, and Drake May is a legit MVP candidate despite not having thrown for 300 yards in a game yet in his career. They have really good vibes going into the bye. Mike Vrabel is essentially a lock for Coach of the Year, and Robert Kraft will be drunkenly celebrating another Super Bowl victory before we know it. Gasp. And that'll do it for this video. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you like this video, you can click the like button and subscribe to the channel. Become a subscriber and click the bell to get notifications every time I upload a video. But stay tuned for more sports content that you didn't ask for.